Hello everybody and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering Arena video. Today it's something slightly different. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Alchemy rebalancing that happened yesterday. So I'm recording this on the 12th of August. The rebalance happened yesterday on the 11th. In the UK it happened, I don't know, at some point in the afternoon. So I've now had a good 24 hours or so to play around in the format since the changes. I just wanted to share some initial feedback really. So for those who don't know, there were two main changes to Constructed. The first being that Cabaretti Revels was changed from one generic mana red-green to red-red-green. Obviously the idea being that if you want to play something like village rites to sacrifice your goblin trap finder, well, you won't have the mana unless you've got a dual land down, so it's making it trickier to splash things like black for that, or splash white in the life gain decks, which is a bit more of an impact, I would say. So being able to splash white for things like Luminarch Aspirant, or even when you hard cast the white spells such as the Trelasara and things like that, that's going to be trickier to then cast your Revels and go off in the life gain decks too. I saw a lot of sort of reviews before these changes went in saying that this wouldn't make a lot of difference, or people weren't sure of the difference it would make. I had a quick look at the meta on untapped.gg. So for those who don't know, we've got a tool here. If I look at Alchemy, just want to look at maybe this range. So if you look, Naya life gain was 15% of all decks played today. But you can see that I think in anticipation of this change, this is already tailing off, and I'm expecting this to tail off further and further. The reason being is it is now really difficult to use Cabaretti Revels. I've run into the deck not very much in the past 24 hours. And the ones that I have run into have been easy victories for me. They haven't managed to combo off with Cabaretti Rebels. Where they have managed to cast the card, they then haven't had the white mana to cast their Righteous Valkyries or similar. So I think this has been a pretty big change in killing off Revels in 3-colour decks. Obviously, it is still possible for people to hit, you know, this on turn 3 and have had a dual white land down. However, I think the inconsistency will put people off. I mean, you can only play and miss on a combo deck too many times before you get fed up with it and give up playing it. So I suspect that is what is going to happen, and it is already happening with the live game versions of this. And sometimes even just a nerf happening to a card is enough to dissuade people from playing it, to be honest, even though it isn't as bad as it looks. Moving on, the Racketeer boss nerf was that basically this gives 2 cards in your hand when they come into play, create a treasure token. That used to happen indefinitely, so people would bounce stuff back to their hand, such as a Sarah Econominous Traveller, as Wizards have said here, and that would then create treasures going forwards forever. That no longer happens. So this is mainly breaking the Jund version of the combo deck. Racketeer boss really was one of the main staples for that in Alchemy. I believe it's also been one of the main staples in Historic, although I haven't really played a lot of Historic myself. But yeah, I think this nerf is pretty much going to kill off the Jund version of the combo, especially combined with this. So I would say that what's going to happen now is Cabaretti Revels will be not a commonly used card, and when it is, it will probably be in Gruul decks or slightly higher curve decks, as opposed to people trying to combo it on turn 3-4. And Racketeer boss will see probably next to no play. You know, there may be the odd Ginny Fae combo or something people are going to try playing, but honestly I really don't think this card will see a lot of play at all anymore, and that is my just experience over the last few days of how these have gone down. What I think will happen as a result of these changes is that we are going to see Esper mid-range start to spike more highly. So the trouble that Esper mid-range has had in the meta where these combo decks were performing very well is that Vanishing Verse doesn't remove either of these cards because they've always been multicoloured, and I think the fall of these decks will sort of prominently bring out 2 things. One, more mono red, and as a counter to that, people will be playing more Vanishing Verse, and the best Vanishing Verse deck is Esper. Esper is probably the strongest deck in the format before these changes even, so I think what we're going to now see is that deck start to dominate even harder. I mean, for me, playing in the top 200 on the Mythic ladder, I would say Esper is the one that will give you reliable wins outside of anything else. Although I am trying to come up with some more interesting content that isn't just Esper. Honestly, Esper is by far the strongest due to Diviner of Fates, due to Vanishing Verse against the mono colour decks that people are playing. So that's basically my take on these rebalancing changes. I mean, one small final piece just to mention, there are a bunch of what they're calling draft changes. Most of these have little to no impact on Constructed, although the changed versions are now the versions you see in Constructed. So, you know, some of these are fairly major changes. The only things that could possibly be useful is Circle of Landra potentially buffing its power, could make its way into some mill decks, although mill decks aren't really that great at the moment. The only other one that I think has any, I mean, these dragons artifacts are kind of memes. The only other one that I think could possibly see any play is the this thing, the Kenku Artificer, being from a 1/1 to a 1/3. If you are trying out an artifact deck, it could be half decent. I don't know, but it's the only thing I think even has a potential to see play out of these. I mean, you come to a River Sea's very occasional play, but it's still not very good, and none of these are going to see any constructive play. So that's my overall take on the changes. Let me know what your experience is in the comments, or if you like this kind of, I don't know, feedback on the changes that Woods are making. If this is helpful to you, please let me know that as well. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it's not my normal kind of gameplay type video, and yeah, I'd like to see you next time. Bye for now.